Now the method of, there's two options for finishing a waistband in the pattern. I'm going to show you the one that I haven't shown in any other videos. So if you prefer to do the clean finish, which is where it's folded up neatly, I will link our other video to one of our other pants there where that's demonstrated. But I'm going to do the serged edge finish, which is a lot easier, to be honest. So I would recommend this only if you have a serger. A zigzag edge just isn't going to hold up to the kind of wear and tear. So what I've done is I've pressed my seam open, and then I have serged one edge of the waistband. If you are doing the other one, you're going to have that folded up. Okay, I'm going to turn my pants inside out now. Just handling it gently. Because there's some shaping in the waist, because so it fits your body better, there's the chance that you could inadvertently stretch it out a little bit. So we don't want to do that. So just handle it with care. Of course, because I chose this ridiculous fabric. It's beautiful fabric, but it is tricky to sew. It does tend to stretch out more. So I'm going to take my seam, and I'm going to match it to the center back seam of my pants. So I'm putting it right sides together, so the waistband's going on the inside, and I'm just going to pin it together. Now, there shouldn't be ease in this waistband. However, as I said before, it does have a bit of a tendency to stretch out a bit, just with this particular fabric, and also with just with it being cut slightly on the bias. Because I have that front seam as well, because I had to cut it in two pieces. I've got a waypoint to measure it against, and then I'm going to just go back and make sure it's all eased in properly. If you like, you can actually just put a little notch into your waistband to help you pin it evenly. So this is right sides together. Great. So I'm going to sew the waistband to the pants using a 3/8 of an inch or 1 centimeter seam allowance. And then I'm going to press that seam upwards towards the waistband. Okay, so I've sewed the waistband on and pressed it up. Now at this point, we want to grade this seam a little bit. This is actually really thin fabric, so I may or may not do that if I weren't demonstrating, but I will do it because it's not going to hurt. So first of all, I like to just go around and cut off like any little ears like this, and I do that at an angle. So that's just the seam allowance as it's extended up into the waistband. And then usually what I do is I run my finger like between the two layers like this, and just cut off, cut it back to about half of its width. Don't cut it too tight, too close. You just want to reduce that bulk a little bit. Whoopsie. Very slinky. Make sure you're not cutting any of the important fabric, just the seam allowance. If I were using anything any bulkier, I would definitely do this step. And it makes a big difference with how the waistband sits, because it's going to be bunched up with the elastic, if you imagine that, and it's only going to like exacerbate any excess bulk there. And what that'll do is it'll just prevent the elastic from sitting really nicely. Now here's, you know, I'm at my pocket, and you know, there are quite a lot of layers here, so I just want to be good about my grading here. Because it's thinner fabric, I'm just gonna grade the pocket as 1. If it were thicker, I would kind of do each level, just each amount of seam layer at slightly different level, but this will be fine. It's not the most enjoyable thing, like it's not like super fun, but it's one of those things that really does level up your garment. Great. Okay. So, if you're going to use a label, now would be a good time to grab a hold of it. I'll show you how to do that in just a minute. Okay, so I have my waistband attached, and then this is the elastic I'm going to use. I really like this elastic. It's really firm and it doesn't roll, because, you know, we all hate it when elastic rolls. It's 1.5 inches wide. So what I suggest you do is, if you have a seam gauge, that's going to be really useful, is place the elastic, and I like to tuck it like behind this, this seam allowance here in the waistband, and then fold this down. So for this finish, you know, we're just going to fold it. I'm going to stitch here. But what I want to do is I just want to measure how much to press. So it's just going to sit there, and then I'm going to take, oopsie, I just caught something on the other side. There we go. So I'm just going to measure how much room it needs. And then I'm going to take my seam gauge. I'm just going to set it for the amount of space that needs, which is just about, it is a bit more than 1.5 inches because it needs a bit of space there. So now I'm going to unpin that, take my piece of elastic out, and I'm going to press this waistband to the inside using my seam gauge as a guide for how much to do that. At this point, you can also add your label at the center back. So you would add it just on the one layer like this, and just make sure that it's going to hit, like make sure it's not down here unless you want it to be one that's hanging down below. If you want it to be in the waistband like this, then sew it on just a single layer of fabric like that, or you can sew on one of the ones that kind of hangs down. So I'm going to press it and then come back. Okay, so I've pressed it, you know, my generous 1.5 inches. And on the inside, you know, because I'm doing this method, it's just going to be that raw edge. So when it's finished, it's going to have this serged edge, which is perfectly comfortable and fine. So the next step is to sew this casing in. Now we have to leave a little gap so we can thread the elastic. And to do that, what I like to do is just put 2 vertical pins, like, like a do not sew zone. So I know to leave this part unsewn. And then, you know, whenever I'm stitching in the ditch, and stitching in the ditch is where we're going to sew right in the crack, right in the crack between where the waistband joins on and where the pants are. We're going to sew right in there. And if you don't get it all the way perfectly aligned, it actually doesn't matter, because it's going to be a bit gathered there because of the elastic. So, you know, don't sweat it if you go a little bit, you know, have a little bit of a jog up into the waistband a tiny bit, or, you know, vice versa, like you accidentally go down into the pants just by, you know, just a titch. It's not important, okay? It's not going to detract from like the beauty of your pants. So yeah, don't sweat it. So just go around and pin it, always making sure that all of the waistband seam allowances are still up in the waistband. Okay, so now I'm going to stitch in the ditch. So that's right in this crack here, all the way around, leaving that gap. I'm gonna do that and be back. I just thought I'd pop on here. I'm mid-sew, just so you can see what it looks like when you're stitching in the ditch. So I've got, I can see where the needle is going to be landing, which is right in that ditch. I find that it's helpful actually to actually look just here. I don't try and look where it's sewing, because where it's sewing, it's, you know, too late basically. So I try to look just about here is where I kind of aim my eyes. Taking out the pins as I go, and then I'm just kind of smoothing it out, making sure everything's sitting right. And I like to just like pop a finger there, or a thumb. And then I'm kind of I only do this for ditch stitching, where I'm just pulling it apart ever so slightly. My sewing machine has a function where I can select if it's going to stop with the needle in the up or the down position. I find it's helpful to have it stop in the down position myself. Oh, I have run out of bobbin thread. So at that point, I'm going to turn my camera off, wind some more bobbin thread, and show you the next step. Okay, so that's been sewn in the ditch, and you really can't see it. But even if you don't get it right in the ditch, it's fine too. On the inside, you can see it's still a really nice finish, just with that line of stitching and the serging there. Okay, here's